Trunk Nation is the show where we talk rock music with you each and every day. And it is always, always great to visit with this old friend who is back making tremendous metal music. He's really one of the architects of metal as a founding member of Judas Priest, now his own band, KK's Priest, getting ready to release a second album, The Sinner Rides Again, which will be out on September 29th. And it sounds like he's even upped the game a little bit from the first record, which came out about a year or so ago. Joining me now live is the one and only KK Downing. KK, how are you, buddy?
Hi, Ed. Absolutely fantastic. Thank you. And hello, everybody over that side of the pond.
You know, we spoke last night on the YouTube show with Don and Jim, and at the time, you were in the middle of making a music video for the new album, and as soon as you finished with us, you went back to the set. Is the video done? How did it come out?
Yeah, fantastic. We didn't get out of there till about 3 in the morning, but we had loads of fun making it. It was, and I'm really looking forward to releasing it. It's out on the 29th of this month, actually on the same day of the album release.
That is, and it's for the track Hymn 66, right?
That's correct. Yes, it is.
Yeah, which is a great track on the record. Who does the speaking part in the beginning of that song, KK?
Well, I have to say that I do quite a lot of the narrations on the album, and yes, so I quite enjoyed doing that. You know, obviously detuning the voice and stuff like that, but I really kind of get into it, Ed. You know, yeah, loads of fun. Like I say, I mean, it's not. You know, you have to have a little bit of, you know, joviality along the way and enjoy yourself a little bit while you're doing this. And why not? Because it's such a wonderful kind of industry to be in. Well, for me, it's certainly my one more shot at glory, I think, Ed.
Yeah, well, it's the record, you know, as I was telling you last night and earlier, and I was telling my audience, the record to me, and I love the previous record, but this one seems like just everything went up a notch. Were you conscious of that? You know, when you went from album number 1 to album number 2 to establish KK's Priest, what were your goals? What did you want to set out to do?
Yeah, well, in all fairness, on the first album, I was kind of, because me being a great kind of classic metal fan, if you like, rock and metal, you know, I'm kind of the old school. I like that a lot, you know, Van Halen, Saxon, Scorpions, UFO, the list goes on and on and on, you know, Priest, Maiden, yeah, all of that. And so for that reason, I think that I don't want any of that to disappear. I want it to have a long life, you know, and I want it to continue. And on the first album, I was kind of thinking, you know, I'm quite happy if some of these songs sound like they could be on the Stained Class or British Steel or any record, you know, from my history, and I kind of like that, you know, adhering to the classic metal sound without too much saturation. And then I kind of did a bit of a U-turn, I must say, you know, on the second album. I thought, you know what, way back in '89. We decided to up the ante a little bit, you know, with the Painkiller album, and just kind of lean on it a little bit and metalize it a little bit, and so it just become a little bit more intense, and kind of that was kind of in my mind when going ahead with the second album, you know, because these things, you know, you have to try things out, and like I say, it's kind of interesting to see what the audience is like today and what the audience adheres to. But it does seem as though, as you said, Ed, the new record, you know, from the people that have heard it, really particularly like, you know, the production and the direction of the new record.
And the thing about it, KK, is that you, in the decades you've been making metal music, and I said a second ago that I consider you one of the architects of it. You and, of course, Judas Priest as a band. I've always said I think the two architects of metal are Sabbath and then Priest, and ironically from the same part of the world and all of that. But I've always felt that. And you're in a situation where I'm sure in the few live shows you've done or the little bit of reaction you've had to this band so far, you've got people out there like myself who have been along for the ride for decades, and then people that maybe have kids and stuff that they've turned on to Judas Priest and they're maybe into some of today's metal, which is a bit different. So my point being is you're really, although I think the bulk of the audience are probably people like me who are old school Priest fans, you're probably also picking up on a lot of younger people, and you're trying to kind of, bridge and bring those worlds together. And I think you've really done it with this record in terms of direction.
Yeah, well, that's a very good point, really, Ed, because I know, obviously, since I kind of parted ways with the band in 2010, it seems like there's a whole new audience in the decade that followed that, and quite rightfully so. I mean, the mums and dads and uncles and even granddads, take the youngsters to see their favourite bands, and inevitably the younger audiences, can take a liking to it or not. But it seems like most people do. Most of the younger audience. They have a liking for this kind of classic stuff that's probably, was put out there just before electricity or maybe before.
Maybe just before, maybe a little bit after electricity, but I understand what you're saying for sure.
Yeah, I was coming from.
Yeah, exactly. No, I totally understand. So let me ask you this. I often find this interesting too. Like, if musicians come out of even the most major band, like I think of somebody like Slash when he was outside of Guns N' Roses making his own records, and countless other artists, they've got there's I think assumption among fans that, well, it's a cakewalk. It's going to be super easy for them because they were in Guns N' Roses, or in KK's case, he's a founding member of Priest and all of that. But it's not that easy, is it? I mean, you really, in some respects, when you do a new band and a new project outside of your main band, you really do almost have to build it from the ground up again, don't you?
Yeah, you do, Ed. And the simple reason is the fact that you have, in the world today, you have brand names, names that have a heritage and a legacy, like Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, Scorpions, all of these brand names, and they're kind of etched in stone, and people have been fans and bought into that and been to the concerts, and it's the brand name, I mean, quite simply, with Judas Priest now, myself and Glenn, we're not there, but the guys can go and still out and play, okay, not stadiums maybe, but, big places, arenas. Just, it's the brand name is bigger and more important than everybody that's in the band put together. And it's always been that way, and I think it always will be that way. So as you say, it doesn't matter what name I choose. If it's not a brand name that's not been around for 50, 40, 30, 20 years, then it doesn't have, the credentials as far as the fans are concerned. They're looking for a band, okay, impress me, come up with the goods, let me see you live, you've got to pass the, to a certain extent, pass the test of time with people. So yeah, it's not that easy, but I think that I am fortunate that people do know me and my name and Ripper, and we were obviously in Judas Priest for so long, and so it's a little bit of a head start on most new bands, and I guess we have to be thankful for that, really.
What drives you to do it, though, KK? Because, there are some that don't follow through on it. And I think of, for instance, a guy like Mick Mars, from Motley Crue. He had never done anything outside of Motley Crue. And for probably 10 years now, he's made a record and he can't navigate getting it out, and he can't seem to get it together to put it out. Or a guy like Geezer Butler. I had Geezer on. He had started a new band called Deadland Ritual, and he came on the air with me, and I said, Geezer, are you going to really be up for this? Like, you just came out of Sabbath. Are you going to be up for getting in a van or playing in clubs or playing in theaters? Are you going to be up for that? And at the time he said yes. And then 6 months later, he left the band and told me, I'm not doing that shit. So it takes a lot to stick it, so to hang in there with it. So for you, what's the biggest driving factor to establish KK's Priest and keep doing it?
Well, several things, I think, really, Ed. I mean, the thing is, I mean, I've been doing this now ever since I was a young lad, you know, and I've been on this wonderful journey, you know, this evolution of music, you know, rock and metal as that we know today, and it's been fantastic to be a part of it. So I think first and foremost, I mean, I'm really enjoying, you know, the writing experience now, you know, and I love being in the collaboration with Rob and Glenn all of those years. But sometimes it just got a bit kind of laborious. Things can go slow, you know, and so I like kind of being at the helm with it, really, and going at my pace. And I'm absolutely delighted to have put out 2 records in 2 years. But the main thing is, I think that as long as I think I can keep what I class as kind of classic metal alive, you know, because so many people say, oh, well, it's boring, you know, literature cheesy, it's been done, it's all been done. But not the way I see it, because so many people now, they still enjoy everything that is from, you know, way back then, you know, early, you know, Scorpions, early UFO, early Priest, early Van Halen. You know, it's got so much credentials. So I'm just hoping to maybe inspire younger musicians to listen to these records and think, do you know what? This shit's really good. I like it. And it's kind of what I want to do, you know. So therefore, you know, just basically keeping the whole thing alive, because us dinosaurs, at some point, we will drop off the edge of the earth, you know, in mass numbers, you know, but hopefully, at that point, there'll be, let's say, we've had the new wave of heavy metal guys, you know, and let's have a second wave and a third wave, and let's keep this thing going.
So do you personally, at this point in your career, I mean, we all know the story with Priest and that, you know, the band was going to end. That's when you know, were out of the band. We all know that you had a desire to come back into the band. They did not reciprocate. And then for you continuing to this, is this in some ways kind of re-energized you as a writer and a player? Because you were kind of, you know, for a few years there, not really doing this sort of stuff. So has this gotten your juices flowing again creatively? It certainly sounds like it, both playing and writing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was kind of the, you know, the sole writer back in the 60s and early 70s. And now I've kind of, you know, before I had 2 feet, but now I've got 2 feet and wings, you know. So I feel as though, you know, in some respects, you know, I've got that newfound freedom, and I can actually be the decision maker, really, and I don't have to collaborate. Like I say, we're a writing collaboration, you know, together, 3 of us, and I wouldn't change anything for the world. You know, I'm so proud of everything that we did and achieved. But I kind of like to go at my pace now and just say, if I like this and I think that this is good and this is the way I would like it to be, it's kind of nice, you know, to be able to do that, I think. You know, it's like when you get let loose in your own kitchen or somebody else's kitchen, you can throw all the ingredients onto a plate that you particularly like. You know, you're just going to get more satisfaction from it, I think, you know, and that's kind of where I'm at the moment.
Did you use, is it all the same team, KK, that made the first album, Sermons of the Sinner, and made this new coming album, The Sinner Rides Again? All the same people involved in terms of the band and producing? Yes,
everything's the same. Yes, I'm the sole producer on both records, and yeah. But like I say, you do a record and then you think, oh, you know, you're always striving to better yourself, and you should, really, because I don't think anybody gets out of bed in the morning and thinks, well, I did that and it's great. I'll do something else and make it not so good. You're always trying to, make it better if you can. That's all you can do. But the main thing is, I do think that these two albums put together could make a great double album. It's just the production's a little bit different on the second album. It's a little bit more edgy, and I do use the term metalized slightly. But I like the character of both records, and I'm not exactly sure which one I prefer. But like I say, if we glued them together, that would make, as far as I know, a really good double album.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, you mentioned Ripper a couple times. Of course, that's Tim Ripper Owens, who was in Judas Priest, did 2 studio albums with the band, and really kept the band afloat during a tough time. I remember I did a lot with you guys during that period. Tell me about your relationship with Ripper, because, I mean, his singing is tremendous, as everybody knows, but after Rob came back and Tim was out, did you maintain a friendship with him during all that time? And was he the natural guy you thought of to be the singer in this band?
Yeah, I mean, Rob left, and after the Painkiller World Tour, and which is a bit ironic, really, because I think the band was on one of its. We're on a high, really. We were doing really, really quite well. But anyway, Rob left for such a long period, and then Glenn decided to do a couple of albums with Cozy and John Entwistle. And then when Glenn did that, it took quite a long time, really, more than 5 years, and we started to look for a singer, and we were just so fortunate to come across Tim, who was actually at that point singing in a Judas Priest tribute album band, and so we got Tim in, and we have to be so grateful for Tim for keeping the band alive and doing all of those wonderful tours and the albums and live albums and stuff. It was a great, great contribution that he made. But I guess the only reason there was an about turn on that really was fan demand to have the so-called, what you would probably call, the well-known voice of a particular band. I often say, like Bruce with Maiden and Freddie with Queen and, Jagger with the Stones. There is a voice of, there are a couple of exceptions, but to the rule. But for the most part, I think that's what it was, because Rob had been so established for so long, so I think, rightly or wrongly, it was the thing to do for the fans. And we always have to think what the fans want. We have to consider them, because otherwise we're in jeopardy of changing a natural course of history that the fans think, potentially or realistically is the better option and the better and preferred route that they want. We have to think of that. That's what I really do believe.
KK, I'm sure you did you see the movie Rockstar?
Yes, I did, actually, in the end. I did, yeah.
What were your thoughts on it when you saw it, and how was there any accuracy to it at all, being based on Tim's story, joining Priest allegedly?
Yeah, I think what happened was, because the guys, I thought it was great, really. It was such a compliment, really, especially for Ripper, and they really asked us to be a part of that movie, and but those that would be thought better of it, and so we kind of walked away from it. And I think when we did that, the producers and everybody thought that they would kind of, even though the basis of it, would make a great story as it was, if it was told accurately, in a non-fiction way. But when we weren't involved, they may well have been afraid of of maybe repercussions of something, if they didn't, if they and in what they depicted as accurate or not. So they kind of moved the storyline away, I think, a fair bit from Ripper, in all honesty. And but I thought it was reasonably entertaining, really, to watch it when I eventually got round. Just taking it on face value for what it was.
Yeah, I did too. I mean, it still comes on TV here every once in a while in the U.S. on the cable channels or whatever, and it's always fun to watch. And you could tell there's some, knowing you guys all so well, you could tell there's obviously some stuff taken from it, and obviously, just like Hollywood does, some things greatly embellished and going off the rails. But I had always, I've talked to Tim about it, but I always wondered what you thought about it, when you saw it, and thought it was, if you thought it was rubbish or you found it entertaining for what it was.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been great to have done a really, really accurate kind of depiction of the absolute truth. That would have been great. But, sometimes, you can get a little bit spooked, because if it just doesn't come off quite right, you could lose your fan base, because the thing is, at the end of the day, you're not in that editing room. Ed, once you've signed some kind of agreement or contract to let somebody do the story, and with no comebacks type of thing, you're not in the editing room, and so you don't have control. And I don't think for a band where we was at that particular time, don't think it was a good idea not to have control over how the band was how people made the band look in the public eye, because a lot of times, Hollywood is Hollywood for a reason, sensationalism and kind of augmenting little details here just to make them a little bit more, the old shock factor. So I think we probably did the right thing, and let them just go ahead and use the basis of a story and embellish it in the way that they eventually did.
Right. And of course, since you ended up, back then, Priest took a singer from a Priest tribute in Tim. I mean, that's been done so many times now. I mean, that actually became somewhat of a blueprint, and still is, for bands going forward, to find replacement singers in tribute bands. Famously, Journey, of course, has done it with their current singer, and many others. So at the time it was looked at as kind of this unique fairy tale story, it's actually happened a few more times.
Yeah. Well, I think the main thing is if somebody's really, really good in a tribute band, they've got the chops, they've got the performance, and they've got the clothes and everything. It's kind of a ready-made replacement time, isn't it, really? So it's hard to resist the temptation of just copy and pasting. Like, if the guy's that good, why not?
Yeah, KK, I won't keep you much longer. Just a couple more things, and we want to remind everybody again, the new album from KK's Priest, The Sinner Rides Again, is coming out on the 29th of September. You can pre-order it now, CD, vinyl, all the different ways you can get it, and look into getting it. I've heard it. It truly is a kick-ass metal record, and I highly recommend it. I got to ask you, KK, about the Hall of Fame, because I screamed and yelled about Priest not being there forever. As a voter, I voted for you guys. I shook the cage as much as I can. It was great to see it finally happen. It was great to see you be up there with the guys again. I had Richie Faulkner on this show not long ago talking about that night. He said wonderful things about being on stage and playing with you, and just kind of, trying to give you, the stage as best as possible, and just kind of be up there to, support as best he could. I mean, obviously he was a Priest fan, so it was a big thing for him to be on there with you. How do you, looking back on that night and going into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, how did that all feel for you, and how do you feel the night went?
Yeah, well, I deliberated. I'm thinking it's a long, long way to go, and because I'm not exactly sure how it's going to all pan out. But both myself and Les Binks, we were delighted when we heard, from the management that we were going to be inducted. That was great. But shortly after that, we had another email saying, just to let you know that you and Les are guests of the band. So straight off the bat, I'm thinking, oh, here we go. This is not exactly how I thought it would go. And then obviously we were kept segregated, flights, dressing rooms, hotels, the red carpet, So it was just total segregation, and that was it. But I'm really must shout out to Richie. Richie was great. He came in the dressing room a couple of times. We had a good few laughs because lots of people were coming into our dressing room. It was good. Dave Grohl popped his head in because he's such a lovely guy, so down to earth, and that was funny. We had a few laughs, and it was great. Didn't say anything of the other guys, but there it is. But to be honest, once I got on that stage and I did it, I was glad that I did it because I think that justifiably, I kind of earned that really, there was some energy. There was a lot of energy from myself and Richie because I think Richie was thinking, I've got to go toe-to-toe with this guy, otherwise I'm just going to look like, a shadow or something. But it was good, we worked it well together. And but I have to be honest, it just didn't feel like it used to. It was far from it. I think we had two drummers and three guitar players, so that's one reason why it didn't quite seem the same as before, really. But yeah, it was fun. Like I say, I'm so glad to have that I made the decision to go in the end.
Well, and I got to tell you, from a fan perspective, which at the end of the day I am and so many others are, I applaud both you and Priest for doing it, for burying whatever hatchet, sucking it up for the fans and doing that, because there's been many times in the history of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame where artists have gone in where there's these divides in the camp and you don't see the other person, they don't go, they're not included in the performance. Sometimes there's no performance at all. I mean, I was pretty involved when Kiss went in, being friends with Ace and Peter, and there was such a divide there that nobody played. The band never played in any form, and it was just such a shortchanging to the fans being there that night. So, and then you've seen other instances where, like Cheap Trick, who were having problems with the original drummer, but they still sucked it up. They brought Bunny Carlos out, they played as that band, and then they went their own ways. The way you guys handled it, at least to the public and for the fans, I thought was fantastic on all fronts, because that's how it should be. Because at the end of the day, that event is, of course, honoring you and the musicians, but it's super important to the fans. And the fact that you guys did that way, I thought was great, and the way it should be.
It was wonderful because it was a nice big arena there with probably about 7,500 people. It was just great to be in front of an audience again, after such a time. It was really nice. As you say, Judas Priest, we always kind of flew the flag for this genre of music and did everything we could. So it was right that we fulfilled that slot, I think, really, just to consolidate everything. And because the other big thing is to try to pave the way for other, such deserving bands that should, be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but aren't. So hopefully now with Sabbath and Priest in there, mind you, Maiden was nominated in the last time, just gone, and they didn't get in. And I was convinced that they would get in there because
ridiculous.
Correct me if I'm wrong, because our performance had so many more hits than all of the other performances, individually. And I thought the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame might go, hang on, there's some good audience viewing here. People like this genre. We need to keep, So I really thought that the Maiden guys would get in. I really did, So, but there's always a next time for the younger guys.
Well, of course, they don't do themselves much favor because A, they don't care about it, and B, they speak out against it. So they don't
Yeah,
really.
yeah.
I doubt they'd even show up if they get nominated, knowing the way those guys roll. But they're doing just fine without it. But yes, as fans, we'd all like to see them there. And I got to tell you, I think it was wonderful they included Les Binks, but I thought it was a travesty that they didn't include Tim, because even though the two albums with Ripper were, not hugely successful. Again, Tim came into Priest at a very, very tough time and kept the ship afloat, filled unbelievably huge shoes and filling it, and coming in for Rob. And, I thought for a guy that made 2 studio records and a couple live records and was in the band for whatever it was, 5 years or so, to include Les and not include Tim. And again, it's not a band decision or your decision, I know, but for the Hall of Fame to look past him, I thought was absurd.
Yeah, it's a very good point, and we have spoke about it. And I know, I'm pretty sure Tim was quite disappointed, for the pure fact that, as you said, that Tim was responsible for keeping the band alive, throughout those critical years, and Tim has paid his dues. He's made so many good records, and he has to be the greatest singer. I mean, he's singing now better than I've ever heard him. I'm not just saying that because it's all there on YouTube for fans to go and check out. We just did some festivals in Europe, and all that footage is out there, and Tim just sings out of his shoes. He's just incredible. So, but lots of good things ahead for us, all being well. Ed, we're very, very much looking forward to coming to the States, home from home, and do some shows for you as soon as we possibly can.
Well, we know we'll have you on the Monsters of Rock cruise, which I host every year, so I'm excited to see you there early next year. Are you going to try to build U.S. dates around that? Because you haven't played yet in the U.S. Is that the plan?
Yeah. If we can't come to the U.S. this year, we are scheduled, or we were scheduled to play quite a big festival in Mexico. We wanted to put some shows, that's on the 2nd of December, in front of that and after that. But if that doesn't happen, we'll definitely try to do that around the Monsters and Rock cruise, try to do a few weeks before the cruise and a few weeks afterwards, obviously not forgetting Canada as well. And, we're here. We're ready to go. We're just waiting for the promoters to call us. But we are filling in dates at the moment for next year's European festivals as well. So that's going quite well. So I think it's going to be very, very busy next year. Very busy indeed for us.
Last thing, KK, and I'll let you go. What is the best Judas Priest album? Give me one. I know it's impossible, but what's the best? If somebody is listening to this right now and never heard Judas Priest, and you got to say, you got to hear this band, what record are you giving them?
Well, it's so difficult, isn't it? That one is really, really difficult. But I suppose if I had to disappear on that desert island and only take one vinyl with me, I'm tossing up between Sad Wings of Destiny, British Steel and Painkiller, and I don't know what's going to win, but it's such nostalgia always hits big with me, so I might have to go with Sad Wings. But if I could take those 3 albums, I would be. And it's sacrilege not to mention Screaming for Vengeance and Defenders of the Faith and all of the other ones.
Right.
But I think from a nostalgic point of view, I think Sad Wings was the album that, apart from the artwork and the font and everything, around that, and the Judas Priest emblem around the angel's neck and everything, it just totally epitomized and just went so well with the name of the band, Judas Priest.
Yeah. Hey, I'm just thinking as I let you go, do you know something I will never forget, which I'm sure you remember, when you guys played for my 25th anniversary in radio, that private show in Times Square, do you know that was 15 years ago already?
Wow. That's gone by quick.
And the reason why I know that is that was for my 25th year in radio, and that means this year is my 40th year in radio. So I'm doing another party. It's going to be in Vegas in December. I know you don't live in the States. I know it. I'm still going to send you an invite, but I'm just telling you that what you guys established for me and did for me back then 15 years ago was one of the most special nights ever, one of the greatest honors ever, and I'll never forget it. And it's amazing that it's 15 years ago, and we're going to do a big party for 40. Again, I'm going to invite you. I understand you. It's a haul for you, but still, sure. I wanted to bring that up because it's amazing.
Yeah, if we can, absolutely, just send us the dates and time, and we'll see what we can do, Ed. But we'd love to be there. Love to be there to congratulate you on the big 4-0 in radio. So, but that's, they often say, well, I often say, Ed, there's no such thing as a young legend, and that's why you're a legend, buddy, because 4-0 in radio, that's amazing. But that's why everybody loves you, and that's why you are a big star on the radio. So well done, you.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. Coming from you, it means a lot, KK, so thank you. Listen, I can't wait for you to see some live shows at the very latest on the cruise. I'll see you. And again, everybody get the Sinner Rides Again, the second album from KK's Priest. It is out everywhere on September 29th on pre-order now in whatever format you'd like. Thanks for the time, buddy. Always great to talk to you, and stay in touch, and we will talk soon and see you soon.
It's a pleasure, Ed. Don't forget to send me those details. You never know. We'll try and show up. Thank you so much.
Oh, you will get the invite. Thank you very much, KK. We'll talk to you soon.
Take care. Bye for now.
Bye-bye. See ya. There he goes, everybody. KK Downing. There's Sabbath and there's Priest. I mean, that's the 1-2 as far as the founding architecture of the music we love in terms of heavy rock, in my view, at least. Sabbath, the founding fathers, as I call them all the time, but Priest right under them. And look, I know, and KK mentioned Maiden a lot of times in that interview. I get Maiden. I am not discounting Maiden's role here at all. But again, you're talking about laying the foundation. The first time I ever saw Iron Maiden, they were opening for Judas Priest. Judas Priest predates Iron Maiden. Judas Priest had an influence on Iron Maiden. So as great as Maiden is, and even though Maiden is an enormous band still now, which we've talked about, you could make the case maybe there isn't a Maiden without a Judas Priest. So that's why it's that pecking order, in my opinion, which is why I've always said, before Priest got into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I always said Priest has to go in before Maiden, just because of the seniority. So that's, even though it's absurd, it took forever for Priest to get in. At least if and when Maiden ever do get in, it's happening in the right order, in my opinion. Should have happened for both of them a long time ago. We know that, but I'm just talking about the lineage. And look, as I've said many times, I mean, for me, when I get to talk to and spend time with the guys that were the building blocks for me, which are the guys from the 70s, it's just beyond special. So anytime I get to talk to anybody in Priest or Sabbath or, the deal, Aerosmith, AC/DC, Kiss, Van Halen, whatever the case may be, those are the building blocks. Those are the guys that as well as I know them, and I know these guys, some of them well enough to talk and text off the air all the time, it's still incredibly special to me. It really is. And that night, which went down 15 years ago, is something I will never forget. 25 years in radio. I will never forget it. I had Rob on my radio show at the time, like the year before. And I mentioned to Rob that he had said something like, well, at that point, he was like, well, you know, priests have been doing this a long time. I said, yeah, I know. I said, I've been doing this a long time. And then Rob said to me, he goes, when did you start doing this? What year? And I said, right out of high school, 83. And he said to me, I go, so this 25 years coming up. And he goes, 25 years? You got to do something. And I said, well, you know what, Rob? I'll do something if Judas Priest plays it. Just kind of joking. I go, you guys come play it and I'll do the party. And he goes, okay. And then I got a call like a couple weeks later from the band's management saying, you know, hey, the guys were serious about this. They will do this. And I was like, what? So we, you know, my buddy John Pasquale over at the Hard Rock at the time, he's not there anymore, in Times Square. There's a great performance venue in there. And we just took it over. And if you want going back to what I just said a minute ago about Sabbath, the other most insane thing about that night was Sabbath was there. So Priest played and Sabbath was there because they were both on tour together. Now it was the Sabbath, the Heaven and Hell Sabbath with Ronnie, but they were on tour together. So Tony and Geezer and Ronnie and Vinny were in New York, and they're like, yeah, of course we're going to come. So you want to talk about next level surreal. 25th anniversary party for me in radio with Priest playing a private show for me in a small place and Sabbath in the audience hanging out, as well as a ton of other people. It's just stupid.